Kazuha, the universal anemo support character that will make your account 10 times better by grouping enemies, increasing your damage, climbing, and much more. So in today's video, we'll be going through his whole kit, what he does, and what he needs. So keep watching. Hello everyone, I hope you're doing great. Today, our guest is Kazuha, the unit that, trust me, you won't regret pulling and will make your account 10 times better. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Starting with his kit and talents. Kazuha is an anemo support character, a sword wielder, and needs as much EM as possible on him. Also, he can have the anemo infusion with Pyro, Cryo, Electro, and Hydro, but not Geo nor Dendro, but you can use him with Dendro reactions though, and we will get into that later. Now for his skill, it's use to group enemies and doing swirl reaction, and the rotation for that would be you hold your skill, plunge, use your ult, and if you have C1 you can use his skill again, but we will get into his constellations later in the video. And just to know that you can press this skill without holding, but it will have a smaller AoE and less damage, but it will benefit you if you just want to make it faster or the less damage doesn't bother you, and will also have a lower cooldown. And now for his elemental burst. Kazuha's burst will cover the field around you, making a large anemo infusion with elements that last for 8 seconds, which is pretty good. You will have the time to do your reactions on the field, and with 15 seconds cooldown, so you'll be able to use it again after a short time. And that's where you need a sufficient ER to maintain it on time. As for his passive talents, the element that you'll swirl will give an element bonus of the same type, like if you swirl Hydro, it will give you Hydro bonus, etc., lasting for 8 seconds. And before we move into his build, I gotta mention that it's best recommended for you to go full EM for him instead of crit. Crit would only give you a slight increase in damage, meanwhile EM will do almost same damage besides bigger benefit for the team members. As for the talent priority, you would go for the burst first, then skill, or the normal attack as they are equal. And if you ask why the normal attack is important, it's because when you plunge using the skill, its damage will scale on your normal attacks level. And now moving to artifacts and what you should run on him. The first and best one is Verdescent Venerer, the universal anemo set. It will buff your entire team besides increasing Kazuha's damage by giving 60% swirl damage increase and 15% anemo damage bonus, besides decreasing the resistance of enemies by 40% for 10 seconds when you swirl an element. And so overall, this is his best set. It's not recommended to use anything else, but yeah, you can also use 2-piece Verdescent, 2-piece Wanderer's True. It will give you more EM, but again, 4-piece Verdescent is your go-to. Now moving on to artifact stats. First thing first, your best stats would be full EM unless you have T6 Kazuha, and that's another story. And you can use crit though, but like I said, it's not the most beneficial. Also, besides EM, it's very important to maintain your ER, like I said earlier in the video, to make sure to get your ult ready after every rotation of the team and having his utmost potentials on the field. You want your ER to be around 160, but still depends on your build and team. And as I said, you need full EM. You can still use ER Sands if you need more energy recharge, but not recommended if you're using your weapon, because, you know, we don't want to overcap. And now let's talk about his weapons. For his weapons, of course, his best in slot is signature weapon, the Freedom Sword. Gives you 200 EM, increasing the damage of all team members by increasing their normal, charge, and plunge attack by 16%, besides increasing attack by 20% when Kazuha triggers elemental reactions. Other options you have, I personally use Iron Sting on Refinement 5, gives you 165 EM, but if you use it, you should make sure you have enough ER, like we said earlier, around 160%. But if you don't, your go-to would be Favonius Weapon. It's a very good choice for him, gives you a ton of energy, besides its effect that when you crit, you will get a chance up to 100 out of Refinement 5. It will generate elemental particles, which will in turn regenerate energy for the character, so it will be perfect for the energy hungry characters on your team. Another weapon is the Sacrificial Sword, especially with its effect of having a 40 to 80% chance, depending on your refinement, of ending cooldown and your skill and be able to use it again immediately. There is also Zyphos Moonlight for EM, besides giving energy recharge by gaining 0.036% ER for each point of EM the character has. So let's do the math. If you, let's say, have 800 EM, then it will give you almost 28.8% energy recharge in return, which is amazing. And that could be even more if you have more EM on him and higher refinement. Also, the craftable weapon Sapwood for ER and other 5 stars like Jade Cutter, but that would be more for DPS Kazuha, and Skyward for ER. You also have Tukabu Sugar, the event weapon that gives you EM. How to read this name? Never mind, this one is also a decent one with ER stats. So that was all about the weapons you can use on him. And for his constellations. First of all, Kazuha is a very good character as C0. You don't need his constellations, but there are some good ones that if you want it, you can have. Starting with this first constellations, which I have, but just because I got lucky but happy that I had. It's a decent one that decreases the cooldown of the skill by 10% and resets after using his ult, so you use a skill, use the burst, and then use your skill again. It's not necessary for him, but it's still good to have. It will make your rotation just a bit longer, so that's something you should note. For his C2, it's one of his best constellations. It will buff your Kazuha, the team when you use your elemental burst, and the elemental mastery will be increased by 200. It will also be good for EM dependent characters, for example Haytham in Quicken or Hyper Bloom reactions. C3 and 5 as usual increase talent level, and C4 gives Kazuha more energy using the skill and 2 energy when gliding. If you have enough energy on your Kazuha, it won't add much experience to be honest, and in my opinion it's not worth it. C6 is the one that transforms Kazuha to a DPS unit that gives you an anemo infusion with his sword for 5 seconds after using his skill or burst and deal anemo damage based on his EM. So after all, again, you don't need them, but if you want for a better quality of life or something, I suggest you stop at his C2, but if you have money, go for it. Now moving on to his teams. Kazuha is an anemo character, which is a very flexible element. You can put him in almost all teams except Mono Geo, and he would still work perfectly. You can make as many team comps as you want with him, but today I'll show you some of the best team comps that you can benefit from. The first team that I want to talk about is Kazuha, Nuvolette, Furina, and Baiju. This team by far is one of my favorites. Nuvolette is the Hydro DPS with Furina increasing his damage, Baiju healing him and making bloom reactions, and Kazuha buffing the team. You can also make changes to the team like using Kazuha, Nuvolette, Nahida, and Kuki Shinobu or Raiden Shogun as Hyper Bloom team. The rotation I suggest would be using Furina's skill, her ult, Baiju ult and skill, twirl these 2 reactions with Kazuha's skill, use his ult, then switch Nuvolette, use his skill, ult, and then use his charge attack, and just enjoy the damage. Another team is Kazuha, Arlecchino, Yelan, and Bennett. Arlecchino is the pyro DPS here, with Yelan supporting her attacks with her Hydro strikes and Bennett for the attack boost. And Kazuha to twirl all these vaporize reactions. You can use other vaporized teams like Kazuha, Child, Shanling, and Bennett, or Ayato instead of Child. Also a free-to-play one is Kazuha, Gaming, Xingqiu, and Bennett. Another team comp is Kazuha, Ayaka, Mona, Kokomi as Hydro supports, Diona, Rosaria, or Shinha as Cryo supports. As a freeze team, which you can also make it a melt team by adding a pyro unit like Bennett. And aside Ayaka, you can also use Risley in a melt or freeze team. Also, you can make the electrocharge team like Kazuha, Raiden, Sarah, Bennett, or Kazuha, Chlorine, Chivalrose, and Bennett. Or you can just make it mono electro like Kazuha, Raiden, Sarah, and Fischl or Yaimiko, or mono pyro like Kazuha, Linny, Shanling, or Dia, and Bennett. And lastly, for Hyper Bloom teams, you have plenty like Kazuha, Alhaitham, Xingqiu, Fischl, or Kuki Shinobu, or replacing Xingqiu with Nahida to make it a quicken team. You can also use with them Tainari with Raiden, Nahida, and Furina or Shinobu. And after all that, you can still make more teams with him. He's very flexible and very helpful and will give you better quality of life in your account. So that was everything for today and everything you need to know about Kazuha. So what are your thoughts about him? And if you have more questions, you can ask me in the comment section below. I'll answer them. If you liked today's video, hit the like button and subscribe for more videos coming. So thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.